All right, everybody, I think it's time we got started. So let me do a little bit of housekeeping before we dive into what it is that you've actually come here for today. First of all, thank you very much for spending your Saturday morning with me. If indeed you're here for the live version, if you're listening to the replay of this, then that's a lack of effort on your part. But for everyone else, well done. You made it on a Saturday morning. Let me make sure, so some of you are going to be brand new to webinars with me, maybe to the GoToWebinar platform. So I just want to take a moment to sort of show you around probably some sort of interface that you've got there, your phone screen or your computer screen, depending on how you're tuning in. So I am hoping, as I'm saying all of this, that you can hear me. You will notice that there is a box which is a questions box, and that is going to be the best way for you to communicate with me throughout the webinar today. The reason why that's the best modality is because if I took all of you off of mute, then I would have all of your background noise coming through my computer and then playing back out to everybody here. If you decide to tell the dog off, for example, then the whole world's going to end up hearing it. So I'm going to be keeping all of you on mute today, but you can use the questions box to send me over messages or indeed questions. So just to make sure that you can hear me okay, could you send me over a yes in the questions box so that I know that you can hear me, and hopefully that you can see my screen too. Well done, Amber. Amber got in there first. And I will shortly put my video on as well, so you'll also be able to see me and the computer screen at the same time. Well done, Sophia. Good stuff. Knowing that you two can hear me makes me assume that everybody else can as well, and if they can't, that's probably a technical issue on their end and not mine, so I'm not going to worry about it. Let me just have a look at my sharing settings. So you've got my screen there, and then if I hit this button, hopefully, as if by internet magic, I have appeared too. Hopefully. So let me just make sure that everyone can see me. View everyone. View presenter. Let's go with that one because I don't need to see all of you guys as well. So if you have had a notification come up to ask to start sharing your webcam, don't worry, you don't need to do that. I bet you're all sat there in your pajamas as well. So yeah, that is my webcam. So, and hopefully that should record as well, because I've done one of these online webinars before, a discovery day rather, and everyone could see me at the time, but then it wasn't on the recording, and that was actually very unfortunate because it was right in the middle of lockdown, and so the street was completely quiet. There was no traffic out the front here at all, and some ducks randomly walked up the street, and it was the highlight of my day, and I showed everyone on the video, and then it wasn't on the recording, and then it looked like I was just a crazy person. So anyway, it's a bit busier out there. It probably won't be as exciting to show you the view today. So I've told you about screen sharing. I've told you that I'm keeping you on silent. I've told you about the questions box, which is good. Speaking of ducks and other distractions, there is a chance there may be some. So today I am here at NLP4Kids HQ, so it's our main office. There's a chance there might be an Amazon delivery. There's a chance my cat might rock up because he quite likes to visit me at work sometimes throughout the day. If he hears my voice, he'll probably just spring in through the window behind me. So there's a chance of that happening too. What else might happen? We shouldn't have a fire drill because I'm not planning one. Yeah, so just know, you know, we're not at a conference centre today, so there isn't that sort of incubated security of the day, knowing that, you know, people aren't going to interrupt and all of that jazz. That could happen today. I think last time I did an online discovery day, my auntie decided to FaceTime me and it flashed up on my screen and all of it. That kind of stuff can happen. What else did I want to tell you about today? So yes, I will do my best to keep the distractions to a minimum, and I will do my best to keep my timings on point for today, meaning that so I'm aiming to get wrapped up at around midday. last time what happened was there was a good few people who wanted to sort of hang around and ask some additional questions. That's absolutely fine. So I will do my best to stay with you until I've kind of squeezed out all of the questions that you wanted to ask from you, and I have got those answered for you. All right, so Jennifer is saying she can hear me, but the reception comes in and out. That is probably going to be an issue with your Wi-Fi and not mine, because we're on like super fast, like mega awesome, super expensive Wi-Fi here. So maybe just move a bit closer to your router. Or another tip is to not use Wi-Fi, but to actually use a wired connection instead. So if your router is in a place like mine is just here, so that's why I know mine's really good. If your router's somewhere feasible for you to access it, then get yourself an Ethernet cable and plug your computer into your Wi-Fi, into your router, sorry, rather than using the Wi-Fi. That will make your connection stronger, and then hopefully you will have a more enjoyable webinar experience with me today. Technical tips from Gemma. All right, so today I'm going to take you through a series of slides. They're the exact same ones that I would be using if this were a live discovery day at our conference venue. And some of them, obviously, I'll skip through a bit quicker because we won't necessarily be doing the full activities that would ordinarily be associated to them. And I will show you the manuals. In fact, let me show you the office, because you know what? If this were a discovery day at our conference venue, it's not here. So it's very rare, even for some of our practitioners that have been with me for decades, still have never been to this office, because we normally run the training elsewhere. So let me give you the tour. So this is my desk, this is where I sit. So if I start at the front of the building, hopefully you don't get seasick. So we are on a high street. There's actually not a huge amount on the other side of the road there. So we're in a parade just along here. The main town is down that way. Around the corner up this way, it goes to our old town high street, which is very quaint and pretty. We moved in here 6 years ago. Yeah, it was 6 years ago. So there's a few companies that operate from this building. We have People Building, which you can't see the logo for up there because the blinds are up. Obviously NLP4Kids, the hypnotherapy clinic, and there is one more, which is Superheroes. And then this is kind of where parents would come in and wait and sit at the sofa area just here whilst I am doing sessions with their child. We've got our big wall map up here, which hopefully you can see, and that details where all of the NLP4Kids practitioners are located, so that when we do get an inquiry coming in, then I can find the geographically nearest. We'll talk about a little bit later, because some of that information is slightly changing since we've gone online, but certainly the right practitioner for them. When I see clients, we're in this little therapy space here, so that's my chair just there, the black one, and then the client gets to sit in the nice comfy beige recliner over there, and then we've got our bathroom and kitchen just through there. And then this room here is quite special. So this is the Superheroes training room, and that bit's peeling off, it's annoying. It goes down, I can't really show you because the Wi-Fi will trip out, but I've got a photo to show you later. So down that sort of corridor, it looks like it goes down into sort of a dark gloomy place. It's actually our basement room. So we had the basement renovated a couple of years ago, and it's been renovated into a training space slash cinema room for me. And so, yeah, we've had some of our practitioners, the ones that have been here, have typically been here to do training downstairs in the basement. So we have a big screen, projector fitted into the ceiling, and then we've run some workshops for young people down there as well. So we can take up to 6 young people to do the workshops with us, you know, kind of as and when we do stuff downstairs. So yeah, that's our physical space, and I'm just going to have a little jiggle around with my desk here, because I'm going to try and raise you up a little bit so that you can potentially not get so much light bouncing around as I'm talking to you today. Yeah, so I moved here from a serviced office 6 years ago. I bought this building. There's a level below the level that we're on now. There are 3 levels above as well. And yeah, the whole thing is mine. So it's a really nice spot. And I remember when I bought this building, one of our NLP4Kids practitioners, in fact, said to me, I don't know about this, Jo, I don't know if this is a good idea. And I said, why not? And he said, well, nobody's ever put NLP on the high street before. I just don't know if that's going to work. And I was like, well, what's the worst case scenario? This is primarily going to be my office. If, you know, the fact it's on the high street is kind of irrelevant. Anyway, we, you know, obviously got it all set up. It was a hairdresser's when I moved in, so it needed a little bit of renovation. And yeah, within the first week, I remember someone coming to the door and just sort of saying, what do you do? And then I explained it, and they were like, oh, okay. And I just started to think, you know what, I actually think being on the high street is a good idea. Don't worry, I'm not going to insist that you all buy high street premises. But the point being, normally, you know, with the sort of work that we do, we would ordinarily be locked away in a little service office somewhere or a back bedroom kind of thing. Yeah, I think as far as I know, we were the first organisation to physically put NLP on the high street. And the Association of NLP, so the ANLP, some of you will be familiar with, are actually also in Hemel Hempstead. It's nothing to do with me. It's purely coincidental. There's a whole other story I can tell you about how I accidentally bumped into them one day. Yeah, this town is a bit of an NLP hub in some way. So I think people are, you know, reasonably comfortable and familiar with it on that basis. So we do get people that sort of walk past, you see them read the signage on the windows, kind of slow down, walk off, and then very often they'll walk backwards and come back into view again, and then they'll come in and say, you know, what do you do? Can you help me? And I've actually had, not just for myself, but for some of the other local practitioners as well, quite a few people that have just been walk-ins who have translated into paying clients. So, you know, it's an interesting set of circumstances. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about why we're really here today, shall we? So I would ordinarily, if I were training like this, I would go down into the basement and use the big whiteboard screen that's down there, but the Wi-Fi will drop out. It's on a different network downstairs. So instead, we're going to be using some old-fashioned pens and paper just to kickstart things for today. So this is a little exercise that I would do at the start of every single discovery day. I want to do it here with you today. So we've got two different grids going on here. We're going to look at this top one first, which says across the bottom, it's going to be an ambiguous graph. You'll learn that I quite like an ambiguous graph. Across the bottom here, it says time, and up the side here, it says issue. And then we've got two different things that we're measuring. So we've got mental health issues, and specifically in young people I'm talking about here. And then we've got the provision of services to those issues with those young people. Now, feel free to add stuff in as I do these exercises with you via the questions box. So you'll be able to type messages in there. I know a few people have just arrived, and send them over to me. So for some of you will have heard of a service called CAMS. Are some of you familiar with CAMS? So CAMS is the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service. And that's the service that if you had a young person who was, I don't know, maybe experiencing some high levels of anxiety, or they started self-harming, something along those lines, and you went to your GP would then refer you on to CAMS. Some stuff you can self-refer, but that's the sort of process most people are familiar with. And then, so CAMS is like an umbrella of different professionals who work with young people. And in different areas of the country, the CAMS service runs more efficiently than it perhaps does in others. So here in Hertfordshire, touch wood, we're incredibly fortunate. We do have very good children's services on the whole, and also quite a lot of investment into children's services as well. That's not the same for every county. However, here, if you wanted a referral to CAMS, depending on the severity of the issue, your wait time is going to be somewhere between 6 weeks and 6 months. So the question I'm going to ask you in just a second is, do you think those sorts of services for young people are increasing or decreasing? So given what you might know about mental health issues, do you think the provision of services is increasing or decreasing? Send your answers over when you're ready. What I want to look at first, as you're typing those answers over to me, so provision of services increasing or decreasing, is the actual mental health issues, like the level of mental health issues in young people. So I'm going to go pre-coronavirus. So prior to that happening, when I did this exercise, I would also ask the question, do we think mental health issues in children and young people are on the increase or the decrease? You don't need to answer that one. I'm just going to tell you the answer. The answer is increasing. And it's increasing for a number of different reasons. Social media, amount of time spent on the internet, lack of family time, breakdown in family structures, there's lots of reasons why. But what we can see happening is that mental health issues in children and young people are going up. All right, so I've just drawn us in a upward arrow there. Now, that's one thing. But the second thing is that that was the world back then. We're in a different place now. Now we have had and will continue to have coronavirus. And when that hit for us as an organisation, I didn't know which way it was going to go, in that this is a very difficult statement to make, because I love what I do for a living. I love being able to help families and young people. But I also am a business owner, and so it's important that I'm earning money. So there was a little bit of concern at the very beginning around what impact is this going to have on my business, if I'm just, being straight up about it. Like, what increase is this virus going to have on my own personal business and those of my practitioners? And on one hand, I thought things could get very quiet for us for quite some time, because we're not going to be going into schools, because we're not going to have young people coming to see us on our face-to-face sessions anymore. This could be really tricky. And actually, the opposite happened. Now, there was probably about a 3-week dip right near the start of the lockdown, but it accelerated again quite rapidly. So what actually happened was that after parents had spent about 3 weeks with their children at home, very incubated, very restrained, all of those lower level underlying issues that were usually either not apparent or were there, but they were just kind of worked around or overshadowed by day-to-day life of going to work and going to school and all of that jazz, just kind of brushed it under the carpet a little bit. All of that stuff started to magnify. And then the calls started coming in. So we very quickly converted to working with online sessions, which, me included, most of us had rebelled against before, been very reluctant to do, but it was a case of needs must. And what I started to see was that in the not too distant future, there's going to be some very big areas that we're going to be working with. Bereavement will be one of them. Lots of people have lost aunties and grandparents, etc., family members as a result of the disease. So there's going to be some bereavement for some of these young people. Some of them are going to be and are already dealing with anxiety related to going back outside again, because we did a good job of scaring people into staying indoors. So there's some of that. Some of them have started to develop anger issues, like I said, as a result of being in that very intense locked-in situation. And so that made it very difficult for some families to be able to interact and engage with each other in a positive way. So home for lots of young people has become quite a toxic place, and it's got lots of other strange things associated with it now that it never had before. Now home is school, now home is family space, now home is like drama and arguments and all of those things. So there's a lot of just confusion around like being in this space where it maybe used to be their safe place and now isn't. And then what's going to be coming up in my prediction for hopefully September, we'll see, is school refusal. I think there's going to be a big spike in school refusers, especially for like your kids going into year 7, or the kids who had issues in year 7 and are going back into year 8 and have maybe just started to overcome their fears around secondary school, who have now had this extended period of time away from school. There's going to be some school refusal issues. So in short, the mental health issues were already on the increase, and my suspicion is that we're going to see a bigger spike than we were already experiencing. So let's look at services. What do you guys say about that? So what are the provision of services? So Joe says provision of services are increasing. Jennifer says decreasing. Amber says provision is increasing. Sophia says decreasing, and Amber says it's extremely hard to access CAMS. So here's my take on it. If you are looking at CAMS as the sole service, my suggestion is that, like, based on what I've seen, you know, my conversations, is that the provision of services are decreasing. All right, within CAMS, there is not as much available as there was. When it comes to alternative and private services, yes, I can see that, you know, there are organisations like us, for example. There are others who are popping up who are looking to provide services privately. So I would say if we were looking at mental health services as a, you know, overall, taking into consideration all of the private organisations as well, maybe we could argue that it's increasing. I think generally it has been decreasing. Now, I know that there are now going to be more funds going into mental health support services because of coronavirus specifically, but prior to that coming along, that was not something that I, as a practitioner going into schools, liaising with them around, you know, what funds they were getting access to me, it really looked like the services were decreasing. So what we've kind of have is something possibly a bit more like this that's going on there. And so what that leaves us with is there is certainly a gap. I think it would be fair to say that the services are not increasing at the same rate and speed as the issues are. That's not happening. That's definitely not happening. So there is this shortfall, and that is where we fit in as an organisation. All right. So we are a private service, and that means that our work is paid for, usually by parents. So there is a few different ways in which we work with families. One is in one-to-one face-to-face sessions, be that with the child or their parent, and sometimes both. And usually families themselves pay for those sessions. When we go into schools, we tend to, not always, but we are more likely to end up working with children whose families might not be able to pay for our services in private one-to-ones, but either the school will pay out of their budget, sometimes using pupil premium, sometimes using funding that we have guided them through an application to be able to access. And then we also do work in the community, so we do community workshops as well, and we've got some online versions of that we'll be doing through the summer, so some Zoom workshops, so bigger groups coming together who all have similar issues and challenges. So what was I going to say? I was going to say, oh yes, so in addition, we also have a not-for-profit company, which is called Superheroes. Some of you may have bumped into Superheroes as a sort of separate entity somewhere along the lines as well. So through Superheroes, we raise funds through donations, fundraising activities, of which we've done some very interesting ones lately, and applying to major charities who also provide funding. So that allows us then to be able to sometimes go to schools and say, if you haven't got funding, don't worry, we've got it covered. Or to work with people in the community who might not otherwise be able to afford our services, and to still offer them all of the strategies that NLP4Kids, NLP for parents and teachers, etc. has to offer, but without them having to pay for it or via them paying a subsidized rate for accessing our services. So most of the time we work as a private service. Some of the time our work gets funded by superheroes and different, funding that's coming through that organization as well. So in terms of this kind of mental health crisis, which I perceived to be something that's going to be upcoming in the not too distant future, I want to sort of play with the idea of that very quickly as well, and I'm going to get your engagement here too. So let's say that it is true, mental health issues in young people are on the increase, but as a society, as a community, let's say, we decide to take some action. And so we put those sorts of provisions in place. Let's imagine you're a politician right now. You get to make some decisions about where the funding goes. So let's imagine then mental health issues in children and young people are on the increase. That is true. But we're going to take some action to make sure that the right provisions are in place and that we're able to address their needs. My question to you is, what would that do for society? What would that do for your communities? If it's true that the problems are increasing, but we do something about that. So I'll get you started. One of the outcomes from having the right services in place, should the issues genuinely be increasing, is that in the future, there will probably be a reduction in things like crime, right? So we will see a reduction in crime levels because some of these other outcomes from mental health issues later on down the line can lead to things like an increase in crime in society. So let's see what other ones. So Rachel is saying we will see an increase in education. I'm just going to put attainment. So we know that if young people are engaged in their so if their mental health is good, they're more likely to be engaged in education, I think is what we're getting at there. All right, good. What else have we got? Reduction in addictions from Sophia, very good. So let's go, we're going to go for a reduction in addictions, very nice. I'm going to add in a like more positive family dynamics. So I know that that's not, it doesn't seem like that's a huge societal impact, but actually I think there's a big ripple effect that comes from that one. So positive family dynamics. Let's see, what else have we got? Self-harm would reduce. Yes, I like that one. So reduction in self-harm. Amber is saying we would produce a more caring, well-balanced community. That sounds so lovely. I'm going to put positive community outcomes. Community. Okay, great. Good, you get the idea. That's the sort of stuff I was looking for. Welcome, Rosemary. Rosemary, I recognise your name. I think maybe you've been on our database for a while. Less breakdown in families and children being accommodated. Yeah, that's a good one, actually. Yeah, and that, again, it would make a huge positive impact on the sort of overall global family. That's not a word. Family dynamics. All right. Good. So now I want to flip it. We're going to go. So here's what we've got so far. We've got our kind of if it is true, but we take action. These are the sorts of outcomes we were looking at. So now what happens if it's true, but we do not take any action? I think we are able to more or less flip what we've said, but tell me if there's more that you think of. So we said that there would have been a reduction in crime if we'd taken action. So I'm going to say there's probably going to be an increase in crime if we do not take action against mental health issues in young people. All right, so I'm calling it there. I'm going to say that crime is likely to spike later on down the line. All right, so we said that there would be educational attainment if we took action. So not taking action is probably going to lead to what? A decrease in education levels, which is then going to have an impact on employability. Maybe let's go with that one. So we're going to see employability issues, because that's going to be a biggie. Employability issues. All right, anything else you can think of if we do not take action? So Amber is saying issues are unlikely to get to the same level if addressed earlier. So that was for if we took action. So I'm going to say then for inaction, issues are probably going to worsen because they're not getting addressed early enough. We know that if a young person has a mental health issue before the age of 13 and it isn't addressed, then they will develop mental health issues later on in life. So let's say worsened issues. And then those things that we'd said about like the positive family dynamics, the community outcomes, I think we would see those would be worsened as well. So worsened issues in families and communities. It's a bit bleak, isn't it? A bit like the weather today. And anything else then that we think, oh, good one, Sophia. So increased youth suicide rates. Okay, suicide rates. And possibly for adults too, because we're going to have parents who feel very out of control and disempowered. You know, I think the sense of just feeling like they can't fix it would have quite catastrophic results on the parents of those young people and teachers too. All right, good. So we've got, if it is true, mental health issues are on the increase. We know what it looks like if we take action. We know what it looks like if it doesn't. So now I'm going to flip it the other way. So now we're going to move into these bottom two quadrants here, where we say that actually it's not true. Gemma's got her facts wrong. Mental health issues were never on the increase. You know, everything was just going to plateau and stay as it was. Now what? So let's imagine then the issues are getting no worse. Everything's going to stay exactly as it is right now, but we've gone and taken some action. Damn it, we've invested in services. We have increased the number of NLP4Kids practitioners. What would that look like? What is that going to do for society, for your community, if we've now got all of these services aimed to provide mental health support and solutions, but the issues were never on the increase? Now we're going into schools, we're providing confidence building workshops, but it turned out they were already confident. What is that going to do? So let me kick us off whilst you are thinking that one through. I'm going to say that, so it's not true, the issues weren't increasing, but we want to take an action. I'm going to call it and say that current issues would get addressed, and that's still good because we're still going to see that their issues do not worsen, and I think that's a good thing. So I'm going to say, even if things didn't get worse, we still have current issues. So issues are positively addressed. Okay, good. What else have we got here? Amber is saying ability to step in earlier with people that need it. Okay, nice. Early intervention. Good work. All right. Intervention. Okay, what else have we got? Training children to manage any issues they may encounter later in life. So we are now becoming a like preventative service. We are becoming a like resilience training for later on down the line. I like that. Okay, so we've got so it becomes useful for prevention and resilience. Okay, nice. What else? Sophia is saying bringing awareness of deeper issues. Okay, so I think just there doesn't even need to be an issue there necessarily. I mean, there could be, and that's great, but maybe there isn't. Maybe it's just awareness. You know, did anybody see back in the days when we were allowed in cinemas last year, The Joker? Did anyone see that film? Because that was a little bit of a reflection of society's reaction towards mental health issues, and it was quite interesting speaking to some people who had been to see the film. I met some people that said it made me feel uncomfortable and I left and I didn't stay till the end. because they were not comfortable with seeing that level of mental health problems and the fact that it wasn't obviously being addressed. All right, so we're saying it's not true. Mental health is never on the increase, but we've gone and taken some action. However, issues have been positively addressed. We've got early intervention, we've got prevention and resilience building going on, and we're developing more awareness. I like it. I can also hear my cat, by the way. I did warn you this might happen. Come here. He's probably going to figure it out in a minute that the window's open and just launching behind me and scare the life out of me. All right, so our final quadrant is mental health issues were never on the increase. It wasn't true. Gemma got her facts wrong, but we don't take any action. So we're down here somewhere. So we don't do anything, and everything stays as it currently is because it's not going to get any worse. Now what? What would happen if everything stayed as it is and we didn't also take any action? Is it going to be a case of, well, we've just saved ourselves a bunch of money or something else? So what have we got here? Rachel says everything stays the same. But does it? Because if we've currently got issues and all we're saying is things aren't going to get worse, then surely this happens. Let's say that we've only got 2 people with mental health problems in our country. All right, let's imagine that. There's only 2, but these 2, here you go, these 2 get married to each other and, hello, they do what people do. This is hindsight, everybody. Office cat basically runs the place, and when I'm not here, sits in my chair and literally pretends to run the place. Right, these 2 people with mental health issues get together, and they have, I mean, you don't even need 2 people with a mental health issue for this to happen, but you'll get where I'm going. They have 3 children. What are the chances that at least one of these 3 children are going to also end up with some kind of mental health issues because they're growing up with parents with mental health issues? You know, it's not just that things will stay the same and then those that have issues now, it will just fizzle out as those generations die off. What happens is the current generations create more generations and they pass on the problem. So our 2 people that we got started with have turned into 5. And it keeps on multiplying from there. So I would kind of disagree that everything stays the same. I actually think even if our current situation didn't get worse, if we don't address it, it's going to replicate and multiply. What's Amber saying? Even if not on the increase, there are still people that will need the services, 100%. Those with issues have a huge impact on those around them, so mental health issues would still increase. We are on the same page, Amber. I like it. All right, good. So that's why we're here today. Now, it was a very long intro, I know that, but yeah, that's the upshot of it. That's the reason why we're here today, because when I weigh up the difference between what the world looks like, here's the thing, we can't decide ultimately what the future is going to look like. I used to always say, you know, the world could change tomorrow. We might get hit by a meteor. We kind of did, except it didn't stop the mental health issues. It's probably made them a lot worse. We got hit by a different kind of meteor, but, you know, the world did change. So we don't get to choose between what the future is going to look like, whether what I'm saying is going to be true or not true. What we do get to choose is whether or not we take action. And when you weigh up the difference between those 2 columns, I would rather live in this world. That is why we are here today, is to make it look like this. All right, so I'm going to flip on over to my slides now. By the way, what I'm going to do, because when I'm going through the slides, I won't be able to see your questions popping up. So I'm just going to dip in every now and again, you know, as and when I reach a sort of segment end, I'll jump in and I'll see what your questions are. So some of them will get addressed later. If they do, I'll say so, and I won't address them then because it will slow us down. Let me flip on this slideshow. I know that you can hopefully all see it. All right, here we go. So it starts off, this is an old slide. I wish they taught this stuff in schools. They do. We do it. Some of you know NLP already and some of you don't. So let me just give you a very brief kind of definition around what NLP is, for those of you who don't know it. And it's something, if you ask an NLPer, what is NLP, you are going to get a different answer to that question, depending on who you ask, depending on what they think your motivations are for asking. You're going to get wildly different answers. So sometimes I describe it as a series of tools and techniques that are a bit like a cognitive behavior therapy mixed with counseling, mixed with psychotherapy. It's like lots of different methodologies coming together. Sometimes I talk about it more in the vein of communication and how it helps us to communicate better, not just with others, but quite importantly, with ourselves inside our own heads. By the way, I think, Jennifer, you're an NLPer. Give me your NLP definition if you can type that in. I'd be fascinated to hear what your description of it is. Some people talk about NLP in respect of modeling. So how you can spot excellence in somebody else, take those same skills and start to install them in yourself. Some people will really focus on the therapeutic side. Some people think of it more from a business angle, some from a education angle, like we do. I even know people that use NLP with animals, and I don't entirely know how that works, but apparently it's a thing that exists. So sometimes I find the best way to explain what NLP is with a metaphor. So today I am a glasses wearer, but very often I wear contact lenses. Some of you may also wear contact lenses. So my question to you is, when you wear your contact lenses, do you see your contact lens when you're wearing it, or do you just see the world? All right, so those of you that are contact lens wearers are kind of going, oh, I can kind of see it as I'm putting it in my eye, but once it's in your eye, you can't see it. You may be able to feel it, but you can no longer see it. You just see the world in its new distorted way, hopefully a good distortion so that you can see it a little clearer. In a way, those contact lenses are a bit like the belief systems that we hold as people. So there are things that we believe about ourselves, about life, about other people, about our abilities, all sorts of different beliefs that we have that have been shaped by who brought us up, where we grew up, what school we went to, the experiences that we've had, all of those things that make us individual, unique human beings have shaped our belief systems. And as a result of those belief systems, they influence the way in which we see the world, just like a pair of contact lenses do. Except, like a pair of contact lenses, you can't see them. You just see the world. So you believe that that's what the world looks like. What NLP allows us to do is to put in a different set of contact lenses. It allows you to change the way that you believe the world to be. It changes your beliefs about yourself and your capabilities, how you can take more control over your behaviors and your actions and reactions in life, just as a result of reshaping your belief systems. You can literally change the way in which you see the world. So that's the way that I like to describe NLP, is it's a bit like a pair of contact lenses. It changes the way in which you can see the world. So what's Jennifer saying? Understanding that everyone has a different map of the world. That's a very NLP way of describing it. Anyone that's never heard of NLP is like, what the hell is she talking about with a map of the world? So basically it's a presupposition. So in NLP, we have like convenient beliefs, and we refer to those as presuppositions. So we use the word map as a description of the way that you see the world around you. So what Jennifer's saying here is that everyone has a different way of seeing the world, in the same way that you can look at a map. And NLP understands and helps people to get outcomes that they want by changing their map of the world with a series of different practices. Yep, so those are going to be our tools and techniques that we use, some of which are quite like you actually do stuff, you know, there's actual practical steps that you go through. Some of it's about a special kind of conversation that you have, is also a sort of technique in itself. And so those techniques and conversations that we have help people to look at the world, look at the map in a different way. That wasn't terrible when written. It wasn't terrible at all. I totally got your gist, and hopefully have helped to translate it for those who have no NLP knowledge that might be here as well. So thank you for sharing it. So yes, NLP is not always the easiest thing in the world to describe, but basically what we do as practitioners is once we've learned all of the tools and techniques, we then meet with a client or potential client, assess what their problem is, and then in our minds, it's our job to go, what's the right tool for this kind of a problem? Sometimes there are tools that are more as solutions, and sometimes there are tools where actually you could use a couple of different things, and then you can somewhat just rely on what your preference is for what particular technique you feel most comfortable with and prefer to use. So with NLP for Kids, we take some of what comes from ordinary NLP training and we've tweaked it, and a lot of it is a change in the linguistics as well. There's lots of very clunky language in NLP, and we've adapted it to make it comprehensible for children. We have some strategies that are very specific to NLP for Kids that you won't find elsewhere, or just ways in which we do things that you wouldn't ordinarily encounter if you were to go through a regular NLP training. So NLP for Kids has been around since 2007, and I think we've been franchising since 2012. Sometimes you will hear me say the word franchising, sometimes I say licensing. I use the terms interchangeably simply because I know most people are more comfortable with the term franchise, because you know what that is. Technically, however, we are a license. And the reason why we're a license and not a franchise is because it's intellectual property. So it's stuff that we teach you rather than physical stuff that we give you. When you own a franchise, for example, like McDonald's, you're going to be using the same equipment with the same ingredients to make the same burger as everybody else in the world. You know, you get a McDonald's hamburger in Hemel Hempstead and then you get one in Holland, they're still going to taste the same. So with a franchise, you tend to have physical stuff, and it tends to be quite strict around what the product is that is created. With a license, it tends to be based more on intellectual property, so stuff that you learn and stuff that you know. And as a byproduct of that, it means that you end up putting your own spin on things a little bit. So we have a lot more flexibility with a license, because I will teach you some stuff, and then you're going to sort of use your own memories and experiences and all of those wonderful things that make you a unique human being, and sort of put your own interpretation on things, and you will restate it in a slightly different way to how I taught it to you. So that's why ours is a license instead. But no, if I say franchise or license, I am referring to the same thing. All right, so speaking of different strategies and techniques, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of a technique. I'm not obviously going to be able to do it here with you today, but I'll tell you how this works, just as a little insight into the sorts of practices that we do and the results that they bring about. So we have a process which is called a new point of view. And it's based on the traditional NLP technique, which is called perceptual positions. You have to be very careful how you say that one. So with the original perceptual positions process, we use that when someone is in a conflict situation. And what happens is we typically use chairs. The chairs are not the important part here. All right, what this is really about is about creating sort of spatial distance so that you can associate into and de-associate from different roles of characters who are involved in the conflict. So I'm going to draw it on a little bit of scrap paper here for you so that you've got some idea of what I'm saying. So let's imagine that we'll talk about the perceptual positions one first, and we'll talk about new point of view. So first of all, there is a chair, which is your chair. That's a bird's eye view of a chair. It's got a back and two arms, all right? We're not getting too technical here. We're going to call that chair number one. When you sit in chair number one, you are you. And your practitioner is going to ask you a series of questions about the conflict that you're experiencing. Let's say that the person you're in a conflict with is called Dave. We then get you to move around to chair number 2. And when you sit down in chair number 2, you are going to think like Dave, talk like Dave, sit like Dave would sit, and you're going to discuss the problem from Dave's perspective. You are no longer you. So in chair number 2, you get to be Dave. In chair number 3, you get to be what we refer to as the observer. And the observer is someone who is impartial. So they've heard what you had to say, they've heard what Dave had to say, and now they're going to give their own spin on things as well. And for each of these different positions, like different chairs, the practitioner has a list of questions that they ask. So you just stick to the script. I mean, as you get more confident, you can get a bit more complex and throw other stuff in. But ultimately, that's the plan, is you follow that script for each of those 3 different physical positions that you have your client sitting in. Finally, as the 4th round, we send the client back to chair number 1. So it's like also 4. And when they go back to chair number 1, they become themselves once again. So we go back into position number 1. And when they go back to position number 1, we ask them, now, how are you thinking? How are you feeling now? Because now they've been through a process of having seen it from Dave's perspective and the observer's perspective. So they've got some very different insights now. And whilst this won't necessarily completely resolve the conflict, but it might, and often does, it will certainly give them an opportunity to kind of walk in somebody else's shoes and to also see their own behaviours in this incident. So it's an incredibly powerful technique, although one of the most simple, like as our NLP processes go, and I'm thinking of NLP practitioner here, this I would say is one of the easiest, but also one of the truly most powerful that you can do. So with NLP4Kids, it's a very similar process, but we use it for a different purpose. We use it for building self-esteem and confidence. So the way that it works is chair number 1, you get to be you. Chair number 2, you are going to be, well, not you, the child, is going to be a role model. So someone that you believe in, hopefully someone that would believe in you too, someone who maybe you aspire to be. So it could be someone that the child knows, but it could also be just, you know, someone famous that they look up to. And they're going to be discussing a challenge, so something that they would like to be able to do, but currently think that they cannot. So for example, a young person that when we were trialing this as an exercise, a young person that we worked with wanted to join the school football team. Now we're going back about 10 years here. So you're going to have to sort of really, you know, dig a little deeper for your football players. If your football player knowledge is current, then you're not going to be very good at this. Like, go back a bit. So chair number 1, he was him, and he was talking about the reasons why he didn't think he was good enough to join the school football team. Again, as the practitioner, you just follow the questions. So there's a set of questions in place already. Then we say to him, now you're going to move around to chair number 2. When your bottom touches the chair of chair number 2, you are going to become your role model, someone who believes in you or someone you look up to. Now, this was, as I said, about 10 years ago. Have a think, who do you think he chose as, I'll give you a clue, it was a football player. It wasn't someone that he personally knew. So go back in your mind 10 years ago, who do you think was a football player that he either aspired to be, looked up to, someone quite famous? Let me see if anyone's getting it. No one's getting it yet. Do I want to give you another clue? If I give you another clue, you'll get it so easy. Very good looking, does lots of modeling as well, has a wife who cannot sing very well. Anyone got it yet? No, not Ronaldo, David Beckham. That's it. So that meant that when he sat down in chair number 2, He had to talk like David Beckham, lots of fun, sit like David Beckham would sit, and say the sorts of things that David Beckham would say. And what we're asking the role model is, why do you think he can do it? All right, so we're referring David Beckham back to the boy who was in chair number 1. Remember, he is now David Beckham. So he's going to be talking about himself, and he's going to be giving us all the reasons that explain why this boy can do it, why he should be on the school football team. Now, here's the really beautiful thing about that, is all of this good advice and the encouragement and the positivity that David Beckham is sharing isn't really coming, sadly, from David Beckham. It's coming from himself. So this is incredibly powerful, because what we have now is a young person who is telling us not just that he can do it, but he's also explaining all of the underpinning reasons that go with the vision. So it's great. Then we have him move around to chair number 3, which is still the observer chair. And in chair number 3, he summarises what was said by the boy at the beginning and from David Beckham, maybe even sort of, you know, kind of hashes out a bit of a debate between them, where he's like, well, this boy's saying this, but David Beckham's saying this. And, you know, clearly some of them have got to be right in some ways, but if this guy who's a professional football player is saying that it's possible, that he should at least go for it, then surely he should. So they're kind of reinforcing the great stuff that David Beckham has said. And finally, he goes back round to chair number 1 with all of those learnings and insights that he's gained from the observer, the experience of being his role model too. So that's the way the process works. I will give you an example of when I used this. Actually, it was probably more similar to the original perceptual positions version, and it was quite mind-blowing actually. So I'll just share that with you as well before we move on. Also, if you've got any questions about this, now's a good time to start pinging them over whilst I finish this segment. So this was a family where there were 2 boys. The older boy was a birth child, and the younger child was, no, I think I've got that around the wrong way. Let me go again. There were 2 children. One was 11, one was 9. The older child was adopted. The younger was a birth child. All right. So they'd obviously adopted, and then, surprise, a brother came along. The adopted child knew that he was adopted. It wasn't a big secret. It is not wholly the reason for the issue, but I think it was a factor that these 2 boys had very, very different personalities, because they were completely different people. They weren't, you know, originally genetically from the same family. So they just had very, very different mannerisms. So the older boy was very introverted, quite shy, wouldn't really volunteer much by way of talking about what he was worried about or any issues that he had. The younger child probably had ADHD and was very confident and quite loud, and just a lot more vocal. So Mum brought them to see me because these 2 boys were arguing, and she brought them both in together, and she sort of explained, you know, what the differences were in their characteristics. And I remember her saying, she kind of pointed to the older one and said, you know, this one wouldn't say boo to a goose, probably wouldn't talk to you if you didn't bother talking to him. This one gets right up in your face and is like bouncing off the walls. And he was like, like this, and the other one just kind of looked at the floor. So they were very different characters, and I made a decision, although the issue was that these 2 were feuding, that in this first session I wanted to speak to them separately, because I needed to figure out how to manage their different personalities, you know, because they needed different things from me, if you know what I mean. So I worked with the older boy first, who was the sort of sullen and introverted one. And I used a sort of combination of the 2 processes that I've just mentioned to you there, but we had a lot of chairs going on in the room. So there was a chair for him to be him, There was a chair for him to be his brother. There was a chair for him to be mum. There was a chair for him to be dad. And there was an observer chair. And I had a much smaller office back then. I mean, you've seen the tiny office out the back, right? So you can imagine 5 chairs, there was a lot going on. And I'm standing, and I always stand when I do this anyway. So in chair number 1, he was himself. He was fully himself. So getting information from him was like getting blood out of a stone. And it was hard work. So then when we went round to chair number 2, he was his brother. And he was in a spinny chair like this. And I can tell you that I had footprints on the walls from where he role played being his brother so well, because he kind of paddled himself around with his feet. So he really went for it. In chair number 3, he was mum. And something I didn't mention about mum is that mum was also poorly. So she had a blood disorder that was affecting her energy levels. And this was part of the reason why it was so difficult for her to sort these two out when they were trying to kill each other. So when he was mum, he just like his energy went and he started to do her illness. You know, he role played her that well. He did the no energy that I'd seen in her a few minutes ago. But the most interesting thing was when he became dad. Now, I didn't meet dad. I've still never met dad to this day. And when he sat down as dad, so I'm standing, as I said, standing next to him. He sat down in the dad chair. And so I said, you know, thank you for joining us today. I've just got a few questions to ask you. And then I launched into the, because you know, as the practitioner, you now have to address them as the identity that they're being. So you don't go, all right, now you're going to be dad. You just say, thank you, dad, for joining us. So I went into whatever the first question was, and he started to answer, and then he did this, right? He goes, oh, excuse me, one moment. Hello? Yeah. No, she's got us going to family therapy. Yeah, we're just with the therapist at the moment. And I watched him taking an imaginary telephone call in the middle of my therapy session. So I tapped him on the shoulder and I went, really sorry, but do you think you could call them back? And he went, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to call you back. I'm sorry, carry on. Right? So I'm like, huh. So then I went on to the next question. I got partway through the question. He went, I'm very sorry, just give me one moment. Send. And he started sending a text message on his imaginary phone in the middle of my session. So I tapped him on the shoulder again and I went, I'm really sorry, sir, but I'm going to have to ask you to put your phone away because this is actually very important. It's about your family and I don't really appreciate the interruptions. Please put your phone away. And he went, oh, I'm so sorry. Carry on like this. Can you believe this? Right. So I'm like, huh, I've got your number, dude. I know exactly what's going on here. So anyway, we wrapped up that section. He went round to the final chair, so our 5th chair in this case, which was the observer chair. And I said, so, Mr. Observer, tell me what you notice about this family. And he's like pointing to the chairs and he points to the dad chair and he goes, that man does not spend enough time with those boys. And even when they go to the park and they're playing, that man, he's not watching them because that man is too busy working and on his phone. And that's why they never see him. And I'm going, okay. And then he said, and those boys don't know that that man is proud of them. And I was like frantically writing notes as he was saying all of this stuff. And I called Mum in at the end of the session and I shared the notes back with her. And I said, I think this might be a thing because what we've got here are 2 boys who are feuding and they kind of need that presence of a father figure to show them that discipline and that self-restraint and control and negotiation, all of those sorts of things. And she said, yeah, I knew that was a problem but when I talk to my husband about it, he just brushes it off. But now you've said it, I think it might make a difference because it's come from somewhere else. And yeah, it was just mind-blowing. And they came back, they did a few more sessions, then they came on a couple of workshops with me as well. And then there was one of these events, albeit not online, like a live one at the conference room, where I couldn't tell the story because guess who was in the audience? It wasn't Dad. I've still never met Dad. It was Mum. And Mum actually went on and did some training with us, and they did all right. You know, they got themselves sorted as a family, and it was a really, really lovely thing that they came out the other side of it. So yeah, I mean, it's a simple process, but you can really get a lot of good stuff from it. All right, so I see a question from Rosemary. What are we saying? Would a child or young person require a good level of functioning to engage? Is there a pre-assessment before engaging in work? Good question. So when we do our one-to-ones, we always do a consultation session first. And again, it's kind of pre-written for you. You just have to pick and choose the right questions to ask. And that is really your guide as to the level of comprehension of the young person that you're working with. Now, when we're doing this in a group scenario, it works very differently because we're going to have young people working with each other using this kind of a process. I had an experience in primary school where I had a wild group in this school, and so we recommend a maximum of 10 children in a workshop, and I will always recommend that to you, and I will always say that to the schools that we work with. However, it's a little bit like it's one rule for you guys, the practitioners, and a different rule for me as the creator of NLP4Kids. And unfortunately, for me, when I go into school, there's a slightly different expectation, and they won't just give me 10 children. It will be like, we know Gemma can cope with 35, give her 35. And I actually had a practitioner who was visiting me in school that day, because I'm trying not to do it so much going forward, but when I am, I always sort of create an open invite for practitioners to come in and observe for their own sort of, you know, personal development and stuff. So one of our practitioners was also visiting on this day when I had 35 children, and we were doing this process. And these were year 4, I think it was a mixture of year 4 and year 5. It was one of those schools where they'd sort of mashed a couple of year groups together. So they were young, like, you know, young and wild. We had like a good cluster of traveller children, because it's in a traveller community in that school as well. So it was probably about 4 or 5 that were traveller children, and they sort of operate by their own rules some of the time, and are certainly very testing for outsiders coming in. So it was a wild session, right? And I'm not going to lie, I taught them the process, I demoed it, and then I said, find a partner, you're going to go off and do this yourself. So when I do this in school, sometimes I'll simplify the questions, I'll maybe just give them 4 to work with, and they'll use the same 4 questions in every round, more or less. So I just try and, like, you know, make it a bit simpler if necessary, which I had with them. And it sounded like, if you'd have walked into the room, you would have thought it was chaos. It didn't help that I was in a hall as well. You stick children in a hall when they're not on their bottoms, and they're like, space, you know, they're all over the place. And I remember feeling like just a bit embarrassed, really, because I had a practitioner there with me, and I was like, oh God, what's she thinking of me right now? We got to the end of the session, and the kids were gone, and I was straight into a lunch break. And so I sat down with her, and she went, are you all right? And I went, not really. And I said, you know, it's just such, that group is so difficult for all of these different dynamic type reasons. And as we were sort of sat there talking about it and how could it be done differently, how could it be done better, one of the boys from my group came in with these 2 other boys that I didn't know. And he said, Miss Bailey, we've got a problem. And I went, okay. And he said, so we were just queuing up to go to lunch, and we were supposed to be washing our hands, and this boy was at the front of the queue to go to lunch, but this boy said that he shouldn't have been at the front. He was only at the front because he hadn't washed his hands. And these two are best friends, but now they've fallen out with each other and I don't know what to do. So he's like brought these two subjects to me and gone, this is the problem. And I was like, so in this moment, there's like several things going through my head, but one of them is like, oh my God, they were listening in some strange, chaotic way. He knows that that process that we've just done is what needs to happen here. So I was like, okay, well done for noticing the problem, but I'm not going to solve it. And he was like, but why? And I said, because you are. And so he then did like a live process on a real life problem with these two boys, and like me, it was Heather, the practitioner. Me and Heather just like kicked back and we just sat back and we watched him do it. And after he left, I was so emotional because both of us really were just like, it's worked, like it's really worked. And now it's also like rippled to a different class where other children have now got access to this, because the ones that we've worked with have actually gone out there and done something with it. And there's a couple of other really good things that kind of came out of it that day that just made me, you know, think of it very, very positively, even though it was a very challenging session. Okay, would any other adults be in session, i.e. a parent in a private workshop or a one-to-one for special educational needs children in schools? All right, so when we do community workshops, you will always have an assistant. We can help you find one. If you don't have a sort of willing volunteer, we will DBS check with them. If you have another NLP4Kids practitioner close by, use them. They make great assistants. Plus you can, like, you know, get a favour later on. So that's one thing. In sessions, in your one-to-one sessions, no, I get parents out of the way. Now that's not everybody's choice, but it's my choice and it is my suggestion. It's a strong suggestion from me. You will see very different children when you work with them on a one-to-one to when you work with them with a parent there. And quite frankly, sometimes the parent is the problem, and they're not necessarily going to be able to give you all of that information if you've still got a parent there. So one-to-ones, parents are over there sitting on the sofa waiting. I'm out there with their child for the hour. Or when I've been doing the sessions on Zoom and Skype and all of that jazz recently, I'll say to the child, you know, let's go somewhere quiet. I've had instances where they've said, you know, I want to sit in the lounge and mum's just in the kitchen, and it's so distracting. It's, you know, that thing that even like older young people do this. To be quite honest, I would probably even still do this, where you ask them a question and if their parent's nearby, they go like that. And they look to the parent either for approval on what they're about to say, guidance on what they should say, or just for the parent to outright answer the question for them. You don't want that, you know, so you want to eliminate that from the equation completely. If you're in school, usually you don't need another adult present because there's so many other people around anyway. So it's very, even though, you know, kind of it is sort of lone working with a group, you're not going to be, unless you're isolated like in a porter cabin, then I would say you need some other system in place to be able to get assistance if required, which is important when you're with a group. However, if you have young people who do have some learning difficulties, then my recommendation would be to liaise with the school about what the issues are and see if for the duration of the session with that particular child, they can send a classroom assistant along, or, you know, someone else who would ordinarily be supporting that child in their sessions, because they probably have an appointed person already for that child. So, you know, it would just be a case of them going to that session with the child as opposed to taking, you know, time with other children whilst you're working with them. So hopefully that answers your question there, Amber. There are no other questions, so I'm going to move on. All right, so that we've done. So you know by now, we're a team of practitioners. We're all over the UK. We've also trained people from Spain, Bahrain, Romania, New Zealand, another part of the UAE that I cannot remember for the life of me now. So yeah, we have people that have trained but not franchised with us, so we don't class them as being on the team. But there are in excess of, I think, 200 people now that have trained with NLP for Kids. We currently have 20 practitioners, so we certainly don't take on everybody that trains with us, and also not everybody that trains with us wants to become part of the franchise anyway, because maybe they want to use the school in a job as a teaching assistant, for example. And you know about the work that we do on the most part. So what's next? I'm not saying the link isn't working. I don't even know what that means. There we go, that's better. So in terms of who I am, by the way, hello, I'm Gemma, nice to meet you. So I am the creator of NLP for Kids. I've written the programs for NLP for parents and teachers and hypnotherapy for kids. I am a hypnotherapy trainer. I actually used hypnosis more so in the beginning than I did NLP. I repeated my NLP qualifications a couple of times before I felt like I'd really got it. I'm a trainer of NLP as well. I have a company called People Building. I have a company called Superheroes. I have NLP for Kids. I have NLP for Kids EU. Lots of different products, lots of different projects on the go. But my background prior to all of that jazz is that I am a qualified nursery nurse. So I started out in life wanting to make a difference to children and young people, wanting to change the world, and ended up changing lots of nappies instead. So I guess I realised that I just wasn't growing enough in that job, and I started to wonder if it was what I wanted to do for the next 40 years of my working life, and decided that it probably wasn't. So I went into personal development. I did a qualification in hypnotherapy and NLP. As I said, later redid the NLP part, started seeing private clients, and then upgraded my training to a trainer level status. Then I set up People Building and started running NLP practitioner and NLP master practitioner trainings for adults and for working with adults, and also creating a shed load of products associated to that company as well. And NLP for Kids came along a little bit later. So in terms of the different levels of training that there are with NLP for Kids, I'm actually going to show you our manuals in just a second, so that you can actually see some of the physical beef that goes behind all of this as well. So we have 3 levels to our training, and if you, have I got one here? Yes, I have. If you haven't already had one of these in the post, so this is the NLP for Kids brochure, and it's going to give you a lot of the details that I've gone through here today. I did email out a link to it to you all prior to this webinar, but if you're anything like me, then you will quite appreciate like a physical thing. I'm not great at reading off of screens. I tend to skip it a lot when I do, whereas if I sit and hold this, I will read it properly. So if you would like a physical copy of this sent out to you, don't put it in the chat box now, hold back, send me an email, and then you can put your address in the email, because I may not have it already, and then I can just get one of these posted out to you next week. So you'll see in here, I'll reference the pages if you do want to look it up in the digital version a little later. So from page 10, no, that's a lie. From page 8, yes, from page 8, it goes into the different levels of training, all right? So that's chapter 3, and it starts to talk about the different levels of training. So the first level of training, it's usually the one that people do first. Sometimes we get people that do things in a backwards order, but normally people do this level of training first, is the silver level training. And the silver level training is like the foundation of everything to do with NLP for Kids. So it is a 4-day course. It starts on a Saturday and it finishes on a Tuesday. The next one is going to be taking place on the 15th of August until the 18th of August. And the next one after that will be in March next year. So we always run one of our courses in term time, one of our courses in non-term time. So the one in August is non-term time. The one that is in March will be something like the 15th to the 18th as well, I think, for March next year, something along those lines. And again, it will be a Saturday till a Tuesday, so it's 4 straight days. There is some home study that you do prior to coming on the course, and I'll talk you through that in just a moment. All right. So on that training, we spend the first 2 days teaching you workshop contents and how to deliver them. We spend a whole day on one-to-one sessions. So we go from the point of, and we even practice that first phone call from a parent right through to your consultation sessions, identifying the issue, choosing which tools to resolve the problem. We do a whole case study around it. We talk about how you evaluate. We talk about getting your testimonials, your form filling in that you need to do, like you name it, it gets covered. We also go through risk assessment, safeguarding, and on the 4th day, we do the business marketing and setup side of stuff, and you're going to leave with a wad of info about websites, direct mail, business cards, all sorts of different stuff, social media. We'll go through all of that stuff as well. So your NLP4Kids training is going to enable you to do one-to-one sessions. It's going to enable you to do community workshops, and it will enable you to go into schools doing both workshops and one-to-one sessions there. All right. So it's all related to delivering your content to young people. This particular slide is an unusual one. So we're back to talking about the traveller community. By the way, again, feel free to send over questions that you might have. I will check in on the questions box when I come to the end of talking about the silver level training to see what you might want to know. So here's an example of a one-to-one session. I had a young person that came to see me who was also adopted into his family. He was adopted into his extended family because he had been abused by his parents when he was a baby, and that abuse had left him with some brain damage. And he had had lots of different phobias throughout his life, and had had lots of different therapies for said phobias. And what would tend to happen is one thing would get solved, but something else would pop up. So it was like chasing the problem. It was always moving somewhere else. His sessions with me were paid for by the Courts Protection Service. And he was about 10, I think, about 10 years old. He lived around the corner from a traveller community, and his new phobia was a fear of travellers. So he could spot them from a mile away, from, you know, whether it was how they dressed, their mannerisms. He could see them, and he was frightened that he was going to get in a fight. So he'd stopped walking to school by himself, stopped going to the park, stopped going to the shops. All of the stuff that he had been able to do independently had stopped. Very quickly, I'll tell you what I did with him. We did a process called a swish pattern. Some of you will be familiar with a swish. This is going to be the world's quickest ever explanation of a swish. I did a lovely swish last week. It went really well. All right, so on the big screen in their mind, you have your client imagine the thing that is currently making them unhappy. So in his case, it would have been an image of travellers fighting, for example. I'm just going to represent that right now with a big sad face, okay, the thing that makes him sad. In the lower left-hand corner, you have them make a picture of something better, like how they would like it to be instead. So you're seeing travellers with a big smile on his face instead of being sad, for example. Then we have them enlarge that little picture that's in the corner to make it grow and cover up the old picture completely. So it starts off down here, and then it goes like this, and now it's massive, and you can't see the sad face, the sad picture at all anymore. Now you've just got the happy one, and you do it quickly as swish. All right, so the word swish is to imply the speed, and you repeat the process several times over. You get faster as you do it. It's good fun. It gets really complicated and confusing. So what it does is it sort of breaks their strategy for sort of imagining a bad thing and then feeling bad, because you end up like so confused. Your words get jumbled up. You're asking them to shut their eyes, and they're going, okay, with their eyes still open. So you, especially with children, you end up with a lot of like giggling, getting associated to it. So it makes it very difficult for them to bring back the old problem state and experience. And it works super fast, this one. Anyway, we'd done this process. And at the end of it, I said to him, and some of you will have got a letter in the post with a piece of Lego attached to it. All right, if that was you, if you got a Lego brick in the post from me, this is why. So we got to the end of the session and I said to him, what was the difference between how you were when you first came to see me and how you are now? And he used like the best metaphor that I've probably ever heard. So he said, when I first came to see you, my problems were so bad, it's as if they were as big as a skyscraper. But now it's just one brick. And I was like, I like that very much, very cool. So some of you got a letter with a piece of Lego in it in the post, and it said, my problems were as big as a skyscraper, but now it's just one brick. That's the story that relates to. Now you know. All right, where does the 4-day training take place? It takes place in Hertfordshire. So our training venue is in a really good spot. So we're in Hemel Hempstead, and we're on the, so we're junction 8 of the M1, junction 21 of the M25. We're on the A41, and it's a 10-minute walk from the train station, which is the Northern Line rail network. So not the Northern Line Underground, but the Northern Line rail network, which goes into Euston and all the way up to Manchester, I think, is where it goes up to. So yeah, we're in a very good spot for commuting. And probably a good time to mention, we will also be putting this training online as a precaution in case there is a second coronavirus wave at some point in the future. With the online option, I'm going to be a bit vague, but it's going to work something like this. So you will get all of the content that you would get from coming to the live training in a bit like this, like a webinar format. But you'll be able to choose when you do your lessons, because there will be elements of it that are pre-recorded. For the practical aspects, you will need to attend the live webinars like this one is today, so that I can then set you off in partners on the webinar to practice the interventions that you've been learning. It's probably going to be something like a 32-hour program, broken down into either 1 or 2 hour lessons that you'll be able to work through. You will also have the option to attend the live training for free later on if you want to. It won't necessarily be an upgrade, but it will just mean that you get a different certificate that says, actually, we've met you, we like you, and you know, that you have done a proper live training with us. So you'll still get certificated, you'll still get your qualification if you attend the online version, but it's just that your certificate will state that you've done the online version. And we've spoken to our insurance. There wouldn't be an issue with you getting insured or anything like that as a result of doing the online version. So it's no less of a qualification. As such, it will be no cheaper, but you will be able to pay per module. So for, let's say you bought, like I say, it's flimsy at the moment because I haven't quite firmed it up in my head, but let's say that you bought module 1 and that was maybe the first 5 hours of training. You just pay for module 1. If you want to do module 2, then you upgrade and you take that. So in total, you will have paid no more and no less than coming to the live training. So if you want to do an online version, that will be coming very soon. I've literally just got a portion of the building turned into a recording studio, so I can start making those lessons for you now, and you'll be able to attend at your leisure. But as I say, the live portions, you will have like an allotted time to attend to get those done. And then if you want to, you can just come along to the next real life live training as and when you want to, and you'll get like your new certification to say that you've actually attended the live training. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Let me take you over here. We're going to go for a little walk and I'm going to show you some manuals. All right. Now, as I said, with the silver level training, before you come on any training with us, you're going to do a little bit of home study. Those of you who are already NLP practitioners, you're going to find this home study super easy to do. I'm just going to exit out of my screen share here. How do I do that so that I can see what you can see? For a minute, let me see. Oh, this is workshops, by the way, that have just come up on the screen. So this Yeah, we don't have geographical restrictions. You can work anywhere in the world that you like. So this is me delivering training in Kuwait, where I've been a few times, and Kuala Lumpur, where I've delivered training as well. Part of the reason why we don't have geographical restrictions is because we encourage you to niche, and by that I mean find a specialism. So, for example, someone's mentioned working with children with learning difficulties. That might be your thing. I specifically work with children with something called selective mutism. We have practitioners who specifically work in bereavement. So we're always going to try and match you up, not just with the client who lives nearby, but also with who suits you as a person, which is another benefit to the live training for me, because I get to know you a bit better. But also we want to match you up with someone who suits your specialist skills for whatever the challenges that they're experiencing. So for that reason, we don't have geographical restrictions, and it doesn't cause any problems, because here, for example, in Hemel Hempstead, where I live, there are 45 primary schools, 16 secondary schools, and 4 special schools. And I cannot do all of that work by myself. And I've already got 3 practitioners, let's say 4, who are in very close proximity to this office, such that sometimes they use it for their own clients, and I still haven't got the area covered. So if you're in this area and you want to be a practitioner, hurry up. Please join the team, because we got a lot of work to do here, and I'd quite like to get my area good, but I can't do all of the work myself. So we've not yet reached, I know people with that are really into franchising really worry about like saturation levels and all of this sort of stuff, and I swear we are a very, very long way from that at the moment. Right, I'm just going to pause sharing my screen with you, and let's see. I just need to be able to see myself on the webcam. That's better. Where am I? There I am. Right. I just want to make sure that I'm putting everything in shot for you. So let me swizzle you around here a little bit, and I'm just going to tip this down. So home study. Before you come on any training, you are going to do some home study, which is provided to you very kindly by People Building. So this is NLP practitioner content. This is not children specific. In here, you have a 6 DVD set, and you have all of the tools and techniques in this manual. There is an open book test that goes with this, and that means that all of the answers to the test paper are going to be in this manual and on these discs. So all you need to do is make sure that you actually work through this stuff to be able to answer the questions. For those of you who are qualified in NLP already, it's going to help us to make sure that you're qualified to the same standard, if not better, than the one that we would expect you to be. Some people do NLP training that they bought for a £5 on Groupon, and that might not be all that good. All right, some people call themselves NLP qualified because they read a book. That may not quite be the ticket that we're looking for here. So we just want to make sure that if you're trained already in NLP, that you're trained up to a standard that we would approve of, and that you can work through that test paper to prove it. If you're not trained in NLP already, it's going to give you your foundation of what NLP is all about. All right, so you're going to learn a lot through working through this manual. In addition, if you have not already got an NLP practitioner qualification, I will invite you to come on this training with me as a result of buying NLP4Kids, and you will not have to pay. All right, so you will get a free ticket if you're not already qualified. If you are already qualified and you want to do a refresher, you too are also welcome to come. Or if you've got someone you want to refer it onto, if you're already a qualified practitioner but you'd like your husband to be, send him along. I'm happy to give you a free spot on this training too, if you take up at least the silver level training with NLP4Kids. All right, so that is the practitioner level. So you get this manual first, then the big cake is this one. So this accompanies our silver level training, and in here you have got a set of DVDs of the live training that you're going to be attending. And this will, you know, for those of you that maybe think about doing the online version instead, I'm going to be referring you to these DVDs quite heavily to say your homework is go watch DVD 1 of 17 to follow up from what we've done on online training. There is also a DVD set in here of all of the techniques being used with children and young people so that you can see those in action. So again, if you are attending the live training, you'll need to watch these at your leisure. If you're attending the online training, you will get referred to these and told to watch them as part of your homework. We have a one-to-one session DVD here. We use this as a case study on the live training, so you're definitely going to watch that one. And there's somewhere in here too is an audio disc in somewhere in here. There is, I don't know where. Then we've got the NLP4Kids absolutely ginormous manual. So in here, there's your audio disc. In here, we've got several sections. So we've got a whole section on like getting started as a practitioner and what to expect from that. All of our policies and procedures, which are constantly on an update, are in here. So we have policies for working online. We have policies for admitting medication with a child who's coming to a workshop. We have safeguarding policies, obviously. So you get to use all of our policies and procedures. We've got COSH data sheets. We've got incident forms. We've got risk assessments. We do some of that on the training as well. So yeah, everything is there. Then you have got all of the stuff around delivering your workshops, including things like booking forms, terms and conditions, video and photography consent forms, all of the individual processes that we use, how to deliver them, what happens when you deliver them, what could go horribly wrong, what to do about it when something goes horribly wrong, even things like the ground rules that you might want to set for your workshop. So there's even, you know, stuff like that in there as well. So for example, that process that we talked about this morning with the chairs, where even is that in here? That's in here somewhere. So it's got, you know, all of the steps for how to do that and what it looks like when you do it, belief stuff in here as well, presentation skills, memory skills. We've got stuff in here about like different games and activities to sort of break your sessions up. And then, sorry, I'm slipping. It's really heavy, this one. You need reinforced shelves if you're going to work with us. We've got a whole section on one-to-one sessions. So again, consent forms, terms and conditions, all of that jazz. Different processes that you might want to use, getting testimonials. We've even got, oh, where is it? Let me see if I can find it for you. So consultation sheet with all our consultation questions. We have something called our prescription. Let me show you. You're going to love this. So we, well, that's my process that I designed. When we work with young people, we sometimes give them homework to do, and sometimes getting them to remember to do the homework can be a challenge. Now, have you ever noticed that if you're poorly and you get a prescription, it's like you're officially poorly, and then you're much more likely to, you know, actually do what you're supposed to do to get better. So I go into this in a lot more detail on the training. I've just skimmed it there, really. It's all to do with like placebo. Anyway, we have our very own prescription for writing down tasking and homework that we may have set for them to do, and then all of our additional resources and bibliographies and etc. is all at the back there. So this is what the silver level training looks like in a physical form. Is these two manuals that will be sent out to you. In addition, we also have what we refer to as our playbooks. So this gets sent to you in a digital format, and it's basically what we use if we're running workshops or as worksheets if we're doing one-to-ones with our young people, so that so let me show you this one because we've already looked at it today. So here is our new point of view exercise with the chairs. So it's basically going to talk them and you through what you're going to be doing. Now, these are quite vague because I noticed that some of the schools we went to wanted just to steal our workbooks and not to pay for the practitioner to come back in again. So if someone picks this up, they're not going to really make sense of what they're supposed to be doing. But for you as a trained person, you're going to know that it kind of instigates you to do a particular strategy or activity. For example, excuse me, if we decide that you are not going to become one of the franchising team and you're not going to be joining us, you still get access to this. It's just that you get an unbranded version. So instead, you will get a download which starts here. All right, it won't have the front cover with the logo on it, and it will say at the bottom that it's republishable with our permission. Sometimes we work with older young people. We use exactly the same strategies, but we do switch out our logo, so our branding looks slightly different for older young people. And sometimes we work with yeah, just like groups, different groups from different places, so we might use a slightly different logo at that particular point in time too. So I'm going to go sit back down at my desk again. We will come back here because I've got a couple of other manuals that I need to share with you. How am I doing for time? Oh gosh, I need to get a wiggle on, don't I? So let me see, are there any questions so far about what we have just gone through there? Let me have a look. Okay, how much is this? Good question. Yeah, how much is it? So silver level training is £6,000 when you pay in full. As I said, with the online version, you'll be able to pay per module and it won't work out any more expensive. You can also break it down into about sort of 3 or 4 big chunks if you want to, providing you've got that paid prior to coming on a live training, then I won't charge any further interest on that. If you wanted to do 12 equal monthly installments, it does work out more expensive, but I'll come to that in a little bit. All right, so that is the cost of the silver level. Sending this now while I remember. How much feedback do you give parents? If the parents are the problem according to the child, do you tell them? Is there a feedback form to complete? So yes, we do give feedback to parents. It's difficult to say exactly how much and what that would look like, because you kind of need to make it fit for that family and what their challenges are. So for example, sometimes I will get a young person to tell their parent at the end of the session what we did that day. If I can trust them to, you know, relay it, sometimes I'll get them to do it in front of me, like briefly, and then go into more detail. Sometimes very often I have notes that I've written up that, you know, like I've showed you, that we would pass on. Sometimes, sorry, I just need to have a quick drink. I'm getting a bit tickly in the throat. Sometimes I will do a follow-up email to a parent afterwards. Sometimes I'll ask them to call me. So it just depends on how severe things are and what the issues look like, as to how that feedback might be delivered. At the end of all of our work with them, we do chase them for testimonials, which is a different kind of feedback, I know. And we have a set series of questions that we send out to them for that too, okay? I'm going to skip this slide because it's just children saying great stuff about us. Let me show you it very quickly. This was from working in a school in Skelmersdale, in one of the poorest postcode areas in the country, or at least it was back then. And they were the first group in their family to have the potential to go on to higher education. And so yeah, they were a tough crowd and we were there to sort of help them to have a bit more, what's the word, like self-worth and self-belief, I guess, really. This was some of their feedback. You can see it was pretty good. It was a good day. All right, so what have I got next? So let me pause it. I'm going to let you watch this in your own time, because you can find this video on the front page of the NLP4Kids website. And it's a video of, it's actually the video of the children that have been through the workshops that are on the DVDs that I've just showed you. So God love them, they did the entire NLP4Kids syllabus in 2 back-to-back days. They were force-fed this stuff for 2 days solid, and then they just did like some lovely video at the end. So this is the video. of them after 2 days of NLP for Kids content. So go to the main NLP for Kids website, which is NLP4Kids.org with a numerical 4, and then you'll be able to see this video on the home screen of the website. That's my homework for you. You can watch that one in your own time, because I just want to shave a little bit of time off for us here today. So let's talk parents and teachers training. This is going to be the quickest ever explanation of the NLP communication model. So this is a great one for teachers, but definitely for parents. Like we've said already, sometimes, you know, the challenge is perhaps in what the parent is doing or not doing, rather than an issue in the child themselves. So what we want to be able to do is, when we have a parent that says, my child does X. So for example, here, let me bring up all of the different elements of this, and then I'll talk you through it. So we have a parent who has said, my teenage son never listens. So the external event is life going on outside of that parent, and the life that they're experiencing is a teenage son who appears not to be listening to them. What happens in that parent's brain is, as they perceive that situation, they are so caught up in that belief that they may end up deleting the times when the teenage son does or did listen. So that it does happen, but it gets deleted. And this is a filtering process within the mind, so that we don't get bombarded by too much information. I'm really skimming this, but you'll get a lot more detail on it when you come on training. They distort what listening might look like. So for example, we might notice with a teenage son that he constantly has a hoodie on with his hood up, or, you know, a bit of floppy hair over his eyes. I'm really generalizing here. Or looks at the floor all the time. And we could then assume that that posture or that presentation means he's not listening. Actually, he may be listening, he's just not making eye contact. And then generalizing is where we link loads of stuff together and say all of this is the same in some way. So the word never is a big generalization here, because never implies like all of time. And again, we know that that's probably not entirely accurate. But what our parent has then got left over for their thinking and focus, having put their experience, their real life experience, through that particular filtering process, is going to leave them with a thinking and focus that only pinpoints the non-listening occasions. So this is what internal representation is all about. It's what are you thinking about and what are you focusing on? And that thinking about and focusing on is going to lead you to a particular emotional state. So our parent, the emotional state might be that they get frustrated, they get angry, they maybe even feel unloved because their teenage son doesn't seem to be listening to them anymore. And then that's going to come across in their physical body, because these things are all interlinked with each other. If you get angry, then, you know, of course it's going to start to demonstrate through your physiology, whether it's like slamming stuff down or getting a bit red in the face, or maybe just more abrupt in their tone of voice. So the way in which the parent then behaves and reacts isn't necessarily going to be the best that it could be, which might cause the teenage son to not want to listen. So we end up with this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy happening. So that's then the result. The result is now he doesn't want to listen because he feels like he's being told off, chastised, because of actually all he was doing was skulking about a little bit with his hood up that day. Hopefully that kind of makes sense to you. So we break this down into sort of infinite detail on training. The communication model is something that I deliver a lot. I deliver it to almost every single client that I work with, be them adults or children, because I feel it's really good for getting us to examine our problem, and instead of saying it's happening because of something out there or someone else, it's more about how am I thinking and how does this thinking cause my problem to continue. So that's what's really beautiful about this particular model. So when we come to work with parents, let's go for another little walk. The NLP for Parents training is another 4 days. So it's 4 days altogether. So we do 2 days on parents, 2 days on teachers. It is 2 further certifications. So remember, you're going to get a certificate for your NLP for Kids, but if you attend the live training with people building as well, you're also going to get a certification for that as an NLP practitioner. So you'll be able to work with adults when you do the practitioner training. If you then do NLP for parents and teachers, which you don't have to do straight away, but you know, you're very welcome to if you want to, then so we do 2 days on parents, 2 days on teachers, and we then will provide you with another manual. So for this one, it's in 2 sections. Let me just check that you can see me okay. Yep. So new manual, we've got a set of DVDs of what you're actually going to see when you attend the live training. So what happens in the classroom. You have got then your NLP4 parents manual here, talking you through all of the different processes, how to do them, what to do if something goes wrong, how to get it back on track again, what challenges you're going to face, etc. Then we've got our NLP4 teachers manuals. So this one, again, DVD set of the live training that you're actually going to attend, plus your manual of the different processes and how to deliver them. You also get a set of playbooks here. So you've got one for parents, one for teachers. There's a parents one. And if you do not go on to become a licensed practitioner with us / franchisee, you'll still get these, but you'll get the white label version. So it starts like this, all right? So it just won't have our branding on it. And these you can use as worksheets, or you can use as bespoke, customized books, just taking out the content that you want to deliver that day when you work with those groups of people. For parents and teachers, we also give you slideshows as well, because the chances are you might be, you know, in a situation where you want to deliver PowerPoint. We don't provide PowerPoint for you to use with children, because my theory is that they spend enough time looking at screens already. So when you come to work with young people, you're going to be using more like things like whiteboards, clipboards, flip charts, that's the one I'm looking for, pens and paper, etc. So we go old school with the kids, but with the teachers, you can do some digital stuff. A lot of the stuff that I do for parents and teachers, I do online. So I will talk to you about that too, about how you can set up online training programs and record them, turn them into products. I've got an NLP for Kids book here. Actually, I don't think I have. That's a bit useless of me. So we do have a book as NLP for Kids, but of it upstairs. But the NLP for Kids book is one that was created after a 4-part webinar series that I delivered. I sold the webinars, I sold the recordings of the webinars as videos, I sold the audios of the webinars as MP3s, and then I had those typed up and created a book from it. So what we want to be able to help you do, excuse me, is to have you become a really dynamic practitioner who isn't just doing the face-to-face stuff, but, you know, the thing with the face-to-face stuff is you're only ever going to be earning money whilst you're physically face-to-face with someone. I want you to be in a situation where you can still make some money whilst you're sleeping. So I will talk to you about products as well, and product creation and product design. And certainly if you join the franchisee team on our full license, then that's something that I will work with you on quite extensively. So that is our NLP for parents and teachers training. Let me see what questions we have. If you purchase NLP for Kids with parents and teachers, so basically you get that package there. So if you take all of that in one go, then it's £9,000. So it includes your home study, your NLP for Kids, your parents and teachers, all in one go. If, however, you choose to just go with silver and then upgrade later, you can do that, and then you just pay the price difference. So you can do kids in 2020 in August, and then in 2022, if you decide actually it's time to do parents and teachers, I can see the benefits. In 2022, you would just pay the extra £3,000 to upgrade your training, assuming the price is the same, obviously. So yeah, that's the price difference between those two. Some people buy them, you know, as a package straight away, but you're not penalised for doing it later on down the line if you want to. So yeah, as I say, it's a 4-day training, starts on a Saturday, finishes on a Tuesday, 2 days parents, 2 days teachers, 2 extra certifications, both of which are also recognised with the ANLP and with our insurance as qualifications in their own legitimate right as well. Okay, so I'm going to take another quick seat and I'm going to talk to you now about hypnotherapy for kids. And at least I'm getting my steps in today, right? So that's good. I also need to plug you in because webinaring uses up battery power, you know. All right, so let me just flip on over back to my screen sharing. Here we go, and go play. Right, hang on, we've done this one. Let's not do it again. So hypnotherapy for kids is something that, if you're not familiar with hypnosis, some people think of it as just like zombified children. It's not really that. So we do a lot on NLP, hypnotherapy, sorry. We do a lot on hypnotherapy for kids training about metaphors, about the use of language, about storytelling, and just about creating relaxed states. So hypnosis is just a deep state of relaxation. You don't have to have your eyes closed. So we won't do it today, obviously, but if you were on a discovery day live with me, I would have you come up with a list of tons of different ways in which children go into trance. And it could be blowing bubbles, it could be playing a video game, it could be reading a story. But there's all different sorts of ways of creating trance-like experiences in children. And sometimes it's just a very valuable tool to have, not just from a therapeutic perspective. You know, it can work really nice to sort of embed positive suggestions and to round off a series of sessions that you've done with just kind of like wrapping everything up. It does that really, really well, but also from a marketing perspective. So you know me by now, I'm not just thinking about, you know, having great therapy sessions. I'm also thinking about make sure I getting to have more of them by making sure that I do my marketing. So you do need to know your market. So when we look up NLP for children, now this was some time ago, but I would imagine the stats are fairly similar. We're using Google here to say how many people in my local area were looking for NLP for children in a month, and the answer was 320. But if I looked up hypnotherapy for children in the same month, in the same location, it's 720. That's significantly more. Now, I don't necessarily want that many clients, but what I do want is to know that there is a market. So sometimes people will contact us to ask about providing hypnotherapy for their child. It's not necessarily the right method, but the fact that they called means that we can educate them about NLP for kids instead. So it does work as a good lead generation because people are more familiar with the term hypnotherapy than they are with NLP. And so it can be a useful way to engage more people into your services. And that's a big part of the reason why I do recommend the hypnotherapy for kids training. You can switch it out for parents and teachers and class that as the gold level and pay the £9,000. If you did all 3 levels together, so very quickly, I'll just show you what that looks like. This is my final getting up and running over here, I hope. It would necessitate another manual. So here is our hypnotherapy for kids manual. And this one, it doesn't come with a workbook, but you get an awful lot more DVDs. So you've got DVDs of the live training taking place. There's 17 of them in there. And then all of the different processes and techniques that we use on hypnotherapy for kids are included in here. Some of those are going to be like more formal levels of hypnosis, such as we will do script hypnosis, script writing on the training, deepening. You will be putting yourself and other people into hypnosis on this training. So it is an additional qualification. So if you buy the whole package, so all of those manuals, all of that training, it's £12,000, including VAT, when you pay in full. With the hypnotherapy for kids, again, it starts on a Saturday, it finishes on a Tuesday. We only run this course 1 time per year, and I will tell you the dates of all the others in just a second. Anything else about that? I don't think so. I think that's it. Right, let's go sit back down again. So, like I said, you are going to need reinforced bookshelves because the manuals are pretty weighty. But, you know, they're filled up with good stuff. There's some really good content in there, even if I say so myself. So in terms of training dates, we have got NLP for Kids, 15th to the 18th of August. We've got the NLP Practitioner, which was the blue manual for your home study. That one is taking place from the 5th till the 11th of September. So that's a 7-day course. We've next got Parents and Teachers from the 24th to the 27th of October. And then we have Hypnotherapy for Kids from the 21st until the 24th of November. And then we'll be starting back up again from February next year. So February next year in the half term will be the NLP Practitioner again. March next year will be NLP for Kids again. April next year will be Parents and Teachers once again, all right? So yes, and you can always check our website on the calendar for all of the upcoming dates as well. So let me just mention the bits I'm conscious of time that I haven't already mentioned. And again, now's a good time to send over questions if you've got some. So I've told you that we will sponsor you for your practitioner training if you don't have it, or if you want to refresh, then you can. If you want to send along someone that you love, have a chat with me, we can figure something out. We will do a DBS check for you, even if you've already got one, unless you're on the update service. If you know what that is, then you're probably on it. If you're not, we'll always do a new one for you. And it's cheaper when you pay in full. So I've told you the pay in full prices today: 6,000, 9,000, or 12,000. Did I say 10 earlier? Because if I did, that was without VAT. So it's 6, 9, 12, including VAT. If you pay in instalments, it works out 18% more expensive. And as you've seen, we do have some manuals in stock, so you can get started as soon as you like. I would recommend, if you want to be on the August training, get your manuals very soon, because you're going to need about 6 weeks to work through your home study. Okay, so assuming that you also do a job of some kind, or you're a parent, which is also a job, then you want to give yourself 6 weeks to work through that home study program. All right, so do keep that date in mind. I'll just summarize this because we've kind of already said it. So the silver level, which is just NLP for Kids with the practitioner, should you need it, is 6,000. The gold level is everything from silver as well as Parents and Teachers, is 9,000. And the platinum level is Kids, Parents and Teachers, and Hypnotherapy for Kids, is £12,000 when you pay in full. All right. Anything else to mention? Oh, you can start with a deposit of 594. All right, so if you pay a deposit of 594, then we can at least get you down on the list for training. So we can put your name down for when you might want to come along in the future. It doesn't tie you to it. We're very flexible, but also we can start then thinking about releasing your home study materials out to you once you've got your deposit down too. Okay, so licenses we haven't talked about yet. I will tell you where you find this in the brochure, and then I will check in on your questions. So we have 2 licenses. We have the full license and the lighter license. You can find out more about these from page 22 onwards. So our lighter license is like the slimmed down version, where most of the support is done online. You will pay a little extra for referrals. So if parents come to us and speak to us here in the office, then we class that as a referral. So you will pay a 35% commission for session 1 only. If you charge £100, it will cost you £35 plus VAT. Okay. With lighter license, you can upgrade to the full license at any point in time that you might want to. It's a 5-year contract, and it costs £120, including VAT, every month. And it just gives you lots and lots of support. I'm going to let you read through it in your own time, but it's things like free retraining as many times as you like, ongoing monthly CPD webinars, all of access to all of our marketing materials, your own website. If clients come to you directly, you don't pay any referrals, by the way. Team meetings, we're doing like weekly online meetings as a team at the moment, as well as the monthly webinars with me. Access to superheroes funds. You get to help out with the fundraising as well. So that's our lighter license. And then our full license is all the bells and whistles, the most significant difference being that you get a better day rate when you're working in schools, because we take a lower commission. You pay a lower referral fees for your one-to-ones, so you only pay a 10% commission instead. You get one-to-one mentoring with me, and that's where we'll go through things like product design and really crafting your website and fine-tuning your keywords and all of that jazz. If you are on the full license, you have to be on it for a minimum of 6 months. So if you decide to take that one, you are committed for a while, because there's a lot more upfront support that you get that requires man hours here in the office. If you are on the full license, it is a 3-year contract, because you're going to speed through stuff a lot faster, and it is £300 per month. There is a point at which it works out more cost effective to be on the full license than the lighter license, so keep that in mind as well. Sometimes, you know, it seems appealing just to go for the cheaper one, but actually you need to do the maths as well to sort of see what's going to work for you based on the different sorts of activities that you will be doing. All right, what do we have here? When would you use hypnotherapy instead of NLP? What would you look out for in a child to make that decision? When would I use hypnotherapy instead of NLP? I think if they had a very strong belief that that was the solution, I would be tempted to use it for that reason, because belief can be a big driver in someone's success. I would use it if, when else might I use hypnotherapy? Maybe for some specific challenges, hypnotherapy can be quite useful. So if someone has very high anxiety to the point that they concentrate on my techniques, I might use hypnosis early on just to get them a bit calmer before I go in with trying to teach them something from the suite of NLP tools. So that might be another time. Yeah, some habits work really well with hypnosis, like nail biting, bedwetting. Some of those sorts of things like hypnosis can be really valuable for. Is that all my questions? That's all of them at the moment. Okay, so let me tell you more about licenses then. So with your license, it is essentially a business in a box. So you get your own website, you get an NLP4Kids email address, you get business cards, brochures, polo shirts, logos, letterheads, sales template. You will have a profile on the main NLP4Kids website for the life of your license too, okay? CPD I've already mentioned, and with the full license, as I say, you also get the mentoring, and we also get you major discounts at different like online places, high street places. It's actually an employee perks incentive called Perk Box, but we offer it all to our full licensees as well. So you'll also be saving money in just completely other areas of your life, like your home insurance or your car insurance or holiday insurance or shopping at Marks and Spencer's or whatever else you might do, okay? And promotions. So we will contact schools for you. We're going to make sure that you get at least 5 meetings in school, and for every level of training you purchase with us, we'll also get you at least 5 one-to-one inquiries coming in as well, and those will come from Facebook leads. So if you buy silver level, you're going to get 5 inquiries from parents. If you do gold level, you'll get 10. And if you do the platinum level, so kids, parents and teachers and hypnotherapy for kids, then you're going to get 15 inquiries that come in, like not straight away, but you know, within your first month or 2 of being a practitioner, paying your license fees, you're going to start to see those inquiries coming in as well. It is by application only, so you can book in an interview. If I know I've spoken to quite a lot of you actually. If I haven't spoken to you in person, then get that arranged. There is on our website, is the word I'm looking for. In fact, it's when you go through to book on for the discovery day, there is a link to my calendar. So you can always book in a time or just email me if you can't find it. I can book in a time to have a chat with you and we can do your interview that way. I can also get application forms sent out so that we can start to do things like speaking to your references. Even if you later on decide you don't want to go ahead and be a licensee, if you've got that bit out of the way, it's going to save you some time on the other side, because sometimes we can wait 6 months for your reference to come back, and in that time we still won't have made a licensing decision because we want to see what your reference says. So if you want to get any of that stuff out the way, then you're very welcome to contact me and I can tell you how we instigate all of that. I'm just gonna like breeze through this because there's way too much. So let me just skip out of here and I'll go to the very last of all of those. Oh no, I've only got one there. Oh, that's handy. In terms of this slide, it just gives you an idea of all of the different things that we take into consideration when we take you on as a licensed practitioner / franchisee. So obviously you get all of the benefits of the team, the website, the credibility, because we're going to make sure you do things like pediatric first aid, that you've got the right level of insurance, all of that jazz, your paperwork's done. Social media, so we provide you with a social media kit every month. All you need to do to get it is to tell me what your activity, your marketing activity and income generation for the previous month was. If you do that every month, I will give you 28 social media posts based around a specific theme and an article that you can share on your blog. You'll get all of the branding, you will get all of the sales copies. So we've got posters, flyers, leaflets, brochures, etc. We will get you through the door with schools. We will introduce you to other sorts of streams of work that you might not have even thought about, like working with charities, for example. And you'll have all of the processes for responding to people in the right ways. So these are our upcoming training dates. The yellow one there is the prac training. The rest all relates to NLP4Kids. So the kids training in August, parents and teachers will actually not be in April. That's not the next one. The next parents and teachers is the 24th to the 27th. Let me correct that for you right now so that I know it is accurate. So parents and teachers is the 24th to the 26th of October 2020. There you go. All right, now it's accurate. And then hypnotherapy for kids will be the 21st till the 24th of November. And then our next dates will actually be 2021. All right, so then it will be prac in Feb, kids in March, parents and teachers in April, and hypnotherapy for kids will stick to November. So we do that one just once per year. So before I let you go today, I'm just going to brag about some stuff, and I'll show you some pictures of the place as well you haven't seen. This is what the front of our building looks like, and that I don't know if you can see it, but there's like a little glass grate in the ground right in between the two big windows that leads down to our basement. This was on our launch day, so it's actually like tidied up a little bit, like the tiles have been replaced and all of that jazz, so it's a little bit prettier now. And this is our basement, so I'd love to show you the before pictures because it was a state. It was like, it was moldy, it got puddles in it every time it rained. It was just like concrete. It was horrible. So this is our little on-site training room. So we do occasionally do a little bit of training here if we have less than 6 people, and we've obviously got the big screen there so that we can do some cinema viewings as well through our not-for-profit superheroes, and everything in the basement is superhero themed. We also have NLP4Kids in Europe. So whilst the UK may be leaving, or Britain is leaving the EU, NLP4Kids is not. So we do work with people overseas in Europe, and we want to be able to continue to do so. So we do have another company over there too. We've won a couple of awards. I told you it was a showy off bit, didn't I? So we have the Highly Commended Award from Mum and Working and a Hertfordshire Business Award, which was specifically for the forum, which only our practitioners can access to get a hold of all of our documentation. So it was for online innovation that we won that particular award. And with Mum and Working, it was best use of technology in a family-friendly business. So as you can see, both of these awards were technology-based. We are also members of the Children and Young People's Mental Health Coalition. We've worked with all of these organisations over the years as well. Some of them I'm super proud of, like been some wonderful collaborations. This is some of the other branding that we sometimes use. I'm not going to go through all of this stuff because I've already mentioned it. I've told you a little bit about products, just some other product credibility stuff. So through people building, I also have a membership club, downloads, hypnosis scripts, a book that I published. I have my book published in Russian. I have a Russian audience. Don't ask, I don't know why. And then we have the NLP4Kids book, which I mentioned earlier, but couldn't find a copy of. That's what the front cover looks like. That one's available on Amazon. That was a self-published one. So yeah, products are super important to us. Social media, we obviously do lots of. So I'll teach you some shortcut platforms like Hootsuite that you can use to make life super easy. So you don't have to log into 20 different places at once. You can literally just go to one platform and have it send out a post to all of your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you might want it to go. It will do it for you. And websites, obviously, we make sure that we optimize. So we use AdWords and SEO so that when you Google certain terms, our website will show up. And this is the one that you will see. There is the one-to-one sessions page where you will find the list of all of the current practitioners. If your insurance expires, if your safeguarding expires, we will take you off of the page. So we don't promote our practitioners if they have out-of-date documentation. So if you ever look and go, that's not the list of 20 that Gemma said, that's why someone's documents are out of date. And they won't get republished until they get them back in date again. No one stays at the top of the page. It rotates on a regular basis. So, you know, you don't go to the bottom just because you're the newbie. And then you'll all have your own, as a licensed practitioner, your own mini site as well, which will look a lot like the main NLP4Kids site. As you can see, it's kind of themed in a similar way, but it will have only your details on it. So it is for shameless self-promotion in your local area. And then this is a snapshot of what the NLP4Kids forum looks like. I'll actually show you this live instead. So let me just hop on over here. So when you log into the forum, it looks like this. There is a whole section for new practitioners. There's a whole section on your marketing stuff, webinars, for example. So we do a live monthly webinar. Oh, this is worth mentioning. So when you are a full licensed practitioner, I do mentoring with you. I've recorded the mentoring. So if you wanted to do the lighter license, but you also wanted the mentoring, you can actually take yourself through the recordings and get all the benefits of the mentoring with me, but in video format. Okay, so all of the mentoring videos are in there. And then all of our live monthly webinars since time began are also in our webinar section. There is details about the different funding options available through Superheroes at the moment, and then details about how to apply for each of those individual funding options that are there. So if you've got a client who can't afford to work with you, then you can, you know, utilize that funding. And CPD is continual professional development, Amber. And Sophia, did I say that on the lighter license you can only deliver sessions online? Nope. What I said is most of your support is online. So most of your support from us as an organisation will be online for you as a practitioner. You'll still be working with clients face-to-face if that's what you choose to do. You can also work with them online if you prefer to do that. I'll be honest, I wasn't all that warm towards the idea of doing online stuff myself, but I've slowly come around to it. So earning potential stuff, I'm just going to whiz through for you to give you some ideas about it, and then I'm going to give you another little bit of homework in collaboration with going through your brochure, which will help you to do a little bit of maths and figure out what your income might be. So this is Ben, who was only doing work in schools, made a killing, but is then obviously poor during the school holidays. And actually this contract was with one school. So when that school pulled out of that contract, Ben was a bit stuck. Moral of the story is have your finger in more than one pie. Don't just stick yourself in one particular genre of work. So you need to have that flexibility. This is Ian. So actually Ian's stats for last month, I've just had in, and so he made more like £2,950 for last month. So his since March 2019, he's really accelerated what he's doing in his business. He's doing a great job. Then we've got some people that have done parents and teachers training. So here's some of their income reflective of that. Debbie made just over £3,000 from doing parent work. Kat has done the platinum level training, so she's got all the tools in her toolkit. She's our only practitioner up in Scotland, and so she made just shy of £2,000 just from her schoolwork with local authorities. And then hypnotherapy for kids, so Shannon's done the hypnotherapy diploma with people building actually as well. So just over £2,000 from doing a one-to-ones and hypnotherapy sessions with adults. And I will just share with you some slightly more recent stats because I took these down just the other day. So I've done last week, this week just gone, and my next week's earnings for you. Let me just hop out of here so that I can see you all properly. Here we go. So I'm also going to send out to you this. Can you all see this business planner? Because what you can do in here is you can customize this for the number of sessions you might do, how many people you think might be attending, and it will calculate what your income should look like in your first 3 months, your next subsequent up to 9 months, and then up to 12 months and into year 2 and year 3. So I'm going to email this over to you so that you can, as I say, when I start playing with some numbers, I'm really talking playing with some numbers here. So as you know, I run people building, I run the hypnotherapy and NLP clinic, I run superheroes, I run NLP for kids, and I have my private practice. So I am not a full-time NLP for kids practitioner by any stretch. I would not even say I'm part-time, because my job is also running all of these other shows and overseeing the practitioners, running their mentoring, everything. So I only get to see clients every now and again. Last week, as in not like yesterday, Friday, but the week before, I did 2 consultations. I saw 3 superheroes clients, so those were funded sessions, which meant that I only got paid £50 each for those ones. And I saw 1 ordinary NLP for kids client. So I made £300 for 6 hours work, like the week before last. This week that's just gone, I did 1 consultation, 2 superheroes clients, 1 child and 1 adult. So I charged £200 per session for children and £250 for adults. So I made £550 in the week just gone for 5.5 hours work. All right, this is, I'm telling you this not to go, look at me, I'm earning the most money, but to say I'm not really doing this properly because I'm busy doing lots of other stuff. If I can make this not doing it properly, think about what you could do when you do it properly. And so for next week, I've got 2 superheroes, 2 children and 1 adult. So that's going to be £750, and that will also be for 5.5 hours work, because I haven't got any consultations taking up any time. So in a 3-week period, I will have made money. Hang on, quick maths. Let me get the calculator on here. Someone else has probably added this up in their head by the time I've found the calculator function. So it's 300 plus 550 plus 750 is £1,600. I don't know why I haven't got 4 weeks worth here. I just didn't. But I think we could safely assume that, you know, I would maybe get somewhere between 300 and 750 for the 4th week's works. So for me doing this at like 5.5 hours a week as a practitioner, I don't think that's too shabby. I think it's pretty good. So, you know, if you can invest more than 5.5 hours a week into this, you're going to be all right. Yeah. So on that note, I know I'm skimming over it, but you know, it's not rocket science, is it? We've talked about going into schools and all of that jazz. I'm going to show you this one super quick, and then I'm going to wrap it up because I think I've bombarded you today already and I'm conscious of time. So any other final questions, send them over now. There should always be 2 streams of marketing happening, and this is why I get to see clients, even though this is not my proper full-time job, is seeing clients, is because I do my marketing. So there's always going to be 2 streams, what I do here as NLP4Kids as a whole and what you do as an individual practitioner. I provide you with a set of 28 social media posts for you to use and a blog post so that you have no excuse not to do your marketing. All right, making it as easy as possible for you people. So if there's 2 streams of marketing going on, it gives us the best possible chance of one-to-one private clients, community workshops, parent workshops, one-to-one sessions for parents, the other groups like the children's charities and NHS and those groups that we sometimes get strange opportunities with. Then we have got our intro workshops that we do for schools. So we normally do a free intro workshop, which leads into your regular termly workshops, one-off workshops in school, or our school placement program. So our regular termly workshops differ from the school placement program in that the regular termly ones are by the hour. So schools can book you by the hour. The school placement program is either a half day or a whole day. And then they kind of get to choose what programs you will deliver, whether it's one-to-ones or workshops. You'll just work with the school to create what it is that they need. We have set programs. I haven't got an education brochure around, I don't think, no. So we've got like 9 different subject areas that schools can choose from: anti-bullying, exam stress, overcome anxiety, confidence building, like you name it, we've got a program for it. And for you as a practitioner, it tells you what content to deliver week on week. So then when you build your playbooks to take into schools, you know what pages you need to print to go with the content that you're going to deliver. Like everything is taken care of. So you will either be delivering those programs in your regular termly workshops, or you might be delivering like 3 of those a day, 5 of those a day if you're doing a school placement program and you're in school for, you know, either a half day or a full day. We have after school clubs that we deliver as well. We have a whole curriculum for after school clubs that will last you for 3 years if you followed it to the letter. It's not a big money generator, but it is a good lead generator, because even though we're only charging on average £5 a head for an hour's after school club, and you're going to have a maximum of I want to say 30, I can't remember now, it's been a while. You have a maximum of 30 in the group and an assistant, obviously, to help you. Then you also have permission to market every month to the whole school with flyers that we provide you with. So then it promotes you for your one-to-one practice as well, okay? You can also be delivering teacher workshops, and we have a teachers coaching program, which is a 10-week program. Again, all of the content is designed for you. You just work your way through it with the individuals. And online training I mentioned very briefly earlier in regards to doing online programs for parents and professionals. So you get everything you need to be able to do that. And the goal is, any one of these things that you do is never one thing that you do. It's always going to segue into you doing something else, because it's always easier to sell more to an existing customer than it is to go out and find brand new customers all over again. It's also much cheaper to do. So that's how we kind of piece it all together from a marketing, lead generating perspective, to kind of keep you with regular ongoing work. So no one thing you do is ever just going to be one thing that you do. Right, so what else have I got here? Are we able to get a copy of these slides, please? No, but you will get some of the important ones automatically by email tomorrow. So those will be the ones with the financial information on, and those will come out to you at some point tomorrow, probably in the morning, but you won't get the whole set of slides because of them being my intellectual property. Sorry about that. What are the timescales like for starting earning over the license fees? Good question. So after training, you've got up to 3 months to think about whether or not you go for a license, and you can take 3 months after licensing, so once you've got your license, to not pay, to be on the equivalent of the LISA license, and to just start putting things into action. All right, so you've got some wiggle room there where you're not going to be paying us and you're probably not going to be earning just yet. Within 3 months, I expect you to have it off the ground and you should start to pay your license fees. However, if you start to pay your license, if you start to earn money sooner, then I will expect you to start paying your license fees sooner. All right, so you've got a little buffer there of 3 months once you got started. Sorry for another question. How confident are practitioners to go out and deliver sessions straight after training? Pretty confident. I mean, to be honest, I think that confidence is something that you get on the course by the very nature of it being personal development training anyway. There's no way you're going to go through this and not come out of it having got rid of a phobia or got better at something that you couldn't previously do. Like, that's just the nature of the sort of training that it is. You get borrowing benefits. So generally speaking, people are pretty confident on the other side of it because it's not just another course. You know, you're going to get a lot on a personal level from this too. You can buddy up with other existing practitioners to go into school, for example, with them, and you know, if you need that sort of little bit extra, then you're welcome to do that, and we will help you to arrange that too. A lot of the time you just have to go for it, but again, it's stuff that you learn on the training, is about how to act as if you've already got it nailed, even though you might not yet feel like you've quite got it nailed, and you get a lot of practice time on the training too. Okay. And Jennifer, for the working schools, do we pay a referral fee if we find schools ourselves? No, because I can't be bothered to sort it all out. However, here's the deal with the referral fee with schools if you find it yourself, and this is actually really important. Thank you for bringing this up. You will need to invoice them yourself. All right, so if you do not want to pay a referral fee, then I'm out of the equation. All right, here is a potential upside, and this isn't me trying to make money. This is like hands up, straight up honest, right? Not that I'm ever not being honest, but this is just a word of warning, if you like. Schools can be terrible payers. And I've been in situations before where more than once, and this was one particular school, but more than once, this particular school owed me in the region of £43,000 for practitioner hours that had accumulated over months, that they're just their internal, what's the word I'm looking for, finance, and referring onto their head office was just shockingly bad. During that time, my practitioners, because there were several of them in the school, which was why the fees were so high, the practitioners still got paid. They never suffered because of that school not paying their bills on time. I have been in situations where, for me as a practitioner, I've gone to work in a school in Manchester for a month, and I spent the first 2 weeks there having not been paid by that school, excuse me, and they owed over £10,000. But I still went and did the work. I have multiple examples of schools being terrible payers. If you have us do the invoicing, then we will take our referral fee for it. So we'll take it's more like a commission, because you know, it's not like you have to pay us for it. We take it out of what the school pay. You will still get paid on time. All right, so I will make sure that at the end of each month you get paid. I will chase the school for the money. So you are very welcome to go to the schools independently, set up the contracts yourselves, and chase them for the money. I'm so happy for you to do that. Please do. However, if you were a sensible person, you would probably just pay the commission. When you don't pay it, you would let us take a commission from what the school pay, and then you invoice me at the end of the month for the work that you've done, and you do not you know, not get paid because the school have been slow at paying. So that's just another thing to think about it. What's the commission? It depends on if you're on lighter or full license, if you're doing full days, half days, or hourly. So as an overview, if you are on a lighter license, you will get paid 67.5% of the total of whatever that contract is. If you are on the full license, you will get 75% of whatever the total of that contract is. So it depends, because the school might pay for a year, they might pay for a term, they might pay for an hour. So I'm not going to go into that detail, but hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea, okay? So lighter license, you get 67.5% of the total contract, and full license, you get 75% of the total contract. So basically, if you're full license, I'm going to take a 25% commission, because I'm taking a risk with payment and all of that jazz as well. Okay, very welcome. All right, is there anything else then that you want to ask? Because I know I've overrun, and I'm so sorry, but I get carried away. As you can see, you're not going to be short on content coming on my training. There's always a story. Is there anything else before I let you guys go today? I hope you've got something useful from it. I will send you follow-up documents that I've promised here today as well. Just hold off until tomorrow for those to arrive. Yes, so if there's any other questions or comments, feel free to send them over now. Otherwise, thank you very, very much for spending a good couple of hours with me on a Saturday morning. I hope it was useful. I hope you got something from it. I know it's not quite the same as coming to a live event and spending a whole day kind of playing with the stuff, but we will be back to live events from September, I think is the next one. Now, what month am I in? June? No, maybe next month, July. I've got a discovery day down for the 18th of July. I just don't know if the conference venue will be back in action yet. If they are, then that one will be a live one. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure the September the 26th one will be a live discovery day. So if you did want to come along and, you know, just kind of meet me in person, you're also very welcome to come here to the office as well, and to sit down and have a chat that way. You know, if you want to discuss how it would work for you on a more individual basis, you're welcome to either come here or book in the call like I mentioned, and we can sort of talk through things in a bit more detail that way. All right, good stuff. Thank you very much, everybody. So Amber says, it's been great, really informative. Thank you so much. Good stuff. Glad to hear it. Joe says, thanks very much, Gemma. Really helpful and interesting. Lots to think about. Yeah, I know. That's the thing with this is we've got so much in what the NLP4Kids, not just the training program, but the other side of it, the license as well. There is so much in it. It's very, very rare now that someone says, can we have a blah, 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 without me saying it's in the forum. We've already done it. It already exists. It's in your manual. Check here, blah, blah, you know. Most of what you could ever think that you might ever need is here. And part of the challenge with NLP4Kids is understanding that it is quite, not a complex model, but there's a lot of layers to it. And I think if you're someone who's like, oh, I'd like to earn just a little bit of extra quid on the side, you would not get the full benefit of what this has to offer, because this is designed for the people that are like me, who are like, I want to do a bit of this and a bit of that and go here and go there and write a book and make a product and you know, if you're one of those people, you kind of like to have your fingers in lots of pies, you're going to love this, because there's a lot to choose from. There's a lot of different ways for you to be able to, you know, make a return on your investment from it. All right, and Rosemary says lots to digest. I know, right? That's exactly what we're saying. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to spend it with you this morning. Hopefully, oh, you've come to say goodbye. How very kind of you. Hopefully we will see you all again very soon. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.